Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Kate and today I'm going to be talking about my goals for 2022 as well as some of the books my books that I'm planning on reading in January. So I will go ahead and start off with goals. I didn't do that great on goals in 2021. Part of that is I didn't start my channel until I think April or May. And then I didn't start doing goals for a couple months after that. So I'm kind of starting out with a clean slate this year. Hopefully by the time I get to the end of the year, I will be able to A, track all of my goals more consistently, and B, hopefully keep up with them a little bit better than I did last year. Some of these are repeats from goals that I had when I started doing that towards the end of last year, and then some of them are new ones. So my goal for the total books that I plan to read in 2022 is a little bit higher than what I read in 2021. 2021 was actually a really good reading year for me. I ended up reading 72 books, which isn't a lot compared to some people, but for as someone who struggled to hit 50 books a year when I wasn't just binging a bunch of graphic novels, it is really exciting to me that I got to 72. I know it's because I joined BookTube and had all that encouragement and all of the buddy reads and fun stuff like that that really motivated me to make reading more of a priority in my life. So like I said, this year I'm going to push that a little bit to read 80 books. I usually try and add basically 5 or so books to whatever I read the previous year. Until I get to a number that's basically unmanageable, but I don't think, given what I did last year, I think 80 is fairly reasonable for me this year. And then I don't keep track of page counts. I don't have any goals in regards to that. I do have some genre goals. One of them, which is a carryover from the goals that I had in 2021, which is to read one nonfiction book a month. I'd really like to focus on reading down some of the history books that I have in my collection. One of my taglines for my channel has been fantasy, history, and a little bit of everything, and mostly it's just been fantasy. So I would like to add history back in and get back to more of that. Read at least one self-published book a month. I started doing this last year when I participated in a readathon that was focused around indie published books that was put on by Lana. I will link her channel down below because that was super fun. I unfortunately didn't have a great reading month when I participated in that. It was the Indie Accords readathon, and but it did really make me want to make indie published books a priority for myself, so that's definitely one of my goals moving forward. One of the limiters that I am applying for myself is to not read more than 5 buddy reads per month. I'm being a little bit generous to myself because I don't know that I can bring it below 5 just from the various book clubs that I'm a part of and stuff like that, and a lot of the read-alongs. So I'm kind of included, book clubs and read-alongs and buddy reads, I'm kind of combining into the same category and just calling them all buddy reads, but I don't want it to overwhelm all of my reading like it did last year, so I'm trying to keep my numbers a little bit smaller for that. Then one of the other goals that's inspired by some videos that I've seen from other booktubers regarding the number of open series that they have. I have like 42 open series that I haven't finished that I would like to finish. So my goal is, I have written down about 20 series. I will be talking about them in a future video, but basically of those 20 series, I want to finish at least 10 of them this year. Somewhat ambitious because I finished, I think, 2 or 3 series in 2021 because I wasn't thinking about it. I was just picking up whatever sounded interesting at the time, which, because I watch a lot of booktube channels, meant that I was hearing about a lot of new stuff, but not a lot of finishing series. So that's what's kind of inspiring that goal. The last strict goal that I have for myself is that I want at least 50% of my monthly TBRs to be coming out of my bookshelves, both physical and my Kindle bookshelves, because they are out of control. I am afraid to count how much of what I own is unread. My guess is it is somewhere in the 25% read category. And it's even worse for Kindle. So I really, really need to focus on reading the stuff that I've already got. I know a book ban is not going to work for me because I have very little impulse control and I love books, and I'm just not going to do that to myself. That's a goal or a challenge that I'm just not going to win, and so I'm not going to bother. But if I make at least half of my TBR coming from books that I already own, then I'm cutting down on some of them, even if I'm still adding to it. So we'll see how it goes when I do my check-in at the end of this year. 3 challenges I'm going to be participating in this year. I may add more if the shelf space readathon happens. I'll definitely join that. If Lana does India Cores again, I will probably end up joining that just because I think it's such a cool idea. But the 3 that I'm going to be focusing on I'm continuing with the Our Fantasy Bingo, which has been a lot of fun. I've started getting more involved in actually participating in conversations on Our Fantasy, which is a Reddit subreddit. So if you're not familiar with them, it's been a lot of fun because I love getting all of the categories and trying to figure out what I'm going to read for that. I am going to have a future video where I talk about where I'm at with those. I probably won't post it until March. The bingo challenge ends in March, so I can kind of do a wrap up of what I read for that then before I start the next one. And then I am joining the Space Invaders readathon. I will post a link to the channel that is hosting that. But one of the goals for me in 2021, I read about 50% fantasy, and I think I had like 15-20% sci-fi, and then the rest other genres, including nonfiction. I'd really like to even out my fantasy and sci-fi reading a little bit and kind of encourage myself to check out more sci-fi categories. I've always been a huge fantasy fan, but I do find that I enjoy some sci-fi, so I want to kind of delve into that a little bit more. So the Space Invaders, I'll post another video about that to kind of let people know about it and encourage anybody who wants to participate, kind of talk about what I'm planning on reading for it. But it's focused around Space Invaders, the game. So you basically, there are certain categories of books that you read in order to defeat the Space Invaders. And then if you fill out one of the sheets, then you basically, that's all you have to do to have won. Then you can continue going if you want to read more of that. It seems like a pretty manageable one, even if you're not a hardcore sci-fi reader, because it's completing a series, it's completing a couple novels, some novellas, and some short stories. The short stories are the bulk of kind of the categories for it. They're smaller points, but more categories for it, so I think it's pretty manageable. And then the final challenge that I'm going to be participating in is Book Riot's Read Harder challenge, where they have a bunch of prompts for the year. Again, I will put out a video where I talk about what I'm picking for those categories. I really like that Book Riot's Read Harder challenge is so across the spectrum as far as reading. There's fiction, there's nonfiction challenges, so I think it really encourages me to branch out a little bit more than I otherwise might. So I want to kind of encourage myself to not be stuck in a rut as far as what I read. That covers all of my goals that I'm planning on, so I will get into what I am planning on reading in January. So in January, despite the fact that I am back in school and have much less time to read again, I have, I think, 6 books on my TBR that I for sure want to get to. as well as a couple arcs that I'd really like to make time for if I can, since I got back on NetGalley and got approved for some that I absolutely didn't think I was getting approved for. So got myself not in trouble, not with a huge number of books, but books that I thought I might get one maybe. So say let me. That's NetGalley for you. Um, so I have one, two, three read-alongs that I'm participating in January. Thankfully, one of them is a reread, and that is Girl in the Tower by Katherine Arden. I adore this copy of this book. Again, this is a reread for me. It's one of my favorite fantasy series out there. I just love the way that Arden blends kind of Russian folktale with early kind of medieval Russian history. It's super fun. It's a great group to be reading this with. So I think that one will be a pretty fun, easy read for me. I tend to pair the book with the audiobook, which I really like. So that'll be a good one to have on my list. That'll be kind of an easier read. But I am definitely really looking forward to getting back into that. The next read along that I am participating in is the Green Rider read along. This is by Kristen Britton. This is the favorite fantasy series of Fine from Fine Reads, who I really enjoy a lot of her videos. So I'm excited to check this one out. I've seen this one on library shelves for a very long time. I want to say this came out in the 90s? I'd have to look to be sure. I'll post if I'm wrong about that. But it looks really fun. I'll leave a link for Fine's description of this because I haven't read it before. I don't think I have a good synopsis for what that one's about, but I'm looking forward to reading it with everybody. I have always been a fan of fantasies involving strong female protagonists, and there's horses in it, so I mean, for me, it's hard to go wrong. It does make me think of Heralds of Valdemar by Mercedes Lackey, which I loved when I was younger, so I'm hoping it'll hit those vibes and be exactly what I'm looking for. The final read-along I'm participating in January is the Realm of the Elderlings read-along that is being hosted over on Gregory LePerch's Discord. Anita is the one who got me into this, and the amount of people who are participating is what finally got me to try out Robin Hobb. That, and I got the pretty version of the illustrated version of the series at Target a while ago because I couldn't resist the look of them, and they're just like, this map is super sweet, and it has illustrations throughout. This is, I think, the cover, same cover as the mass market edition, but it's not mass market, which makes me happy because I don't like mass market. And I'll pick an and so here's an illustration from kind of towards the beginning that I shouldn't have any spoilers for you. As you can tell from the bookmark, I have already started this one since I am filming this TBR a little bit late, and I'm really enjoying it so far. So basically, Assassin's Apprentice follows a young boy named Fitz, who is the bastard son of a prince and ends up getting trained as an assassin because they don't want him to be a threat to the legitimate line of succession to the kingdom, so it's basically their way of keeping him under wraps. But it sounds very emotional. I have been told this is traumatic and also very beautiful, so I can definitely say I'm a chapter and a half in, basically, and the writing is so vivid and so beautiful that I think I'm going to end up feeling compelled to finish this, even though I don't like slow-paced, and I actively avoid emotionally traumatic books, but this one is just, so far, very compelling. And the final buddy read category book that I don't have physically. I got this one from the library because, to be honest, when it got announced, it sounded like really not my kind of book, and that is The Humans by Matt Haig. I am reading this as part of the Bedtime Bookworms book club that Jade from Bedtime Bookworm hosts. I will leave a link to her channel down below if you want to check that out. They're such a fun group to talk about books with. Whether or not I love the book, it's just a great group. So I am looking forward to at least chatting about this, even if it ends up not being my cup of tea, but who knows? Maybe it'll turn out to be something I really enjoy. The basic premise for the humans is that there's this alien who comes to Earth for a specific mission and ends up kind of having to navigate how to interact with humans while pretending to be something else. I think he masquerades as a human. So it's kind of about him navigating human interactions and trying to complete this mission that he was sent to Earth for. So, it's supposed to be humorous. It's supposed to be kind of a commentary on human nature and people. And that sounds kind of Pratchett-like. I don't love alien stories, to be honest. And when it's described as kind of quirky or heartwarming, half the time I love it and half the time I can't stand it. So, we'll see which one this falls into. Then, my nonfiction pick for the month is an arc that I got from NetGalley. This is one I was very curious about, which is Index, A History of the by Dennis Duncan. I think this one is coming out on February 15th of this year. It is, as it says, a history of the index. Basically from, I think, like early medieval time period up to like modern search engines. And it sounds, for a history geek and someone who's studying computer science, it sounds fascinating. I am very curious to see more of how that kind of progressed, because that's not a category. I have a deep love of medieval manuscripts and a lot of interest in computer science. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I have a self-published pick for January, which is Cradle of Sea and Soil by Bernie Anez Paz. I picked this up. This actually has been on my list. I picked this for the book bingo, our fantasy book bingo, because it is has a forest setting and is also fits for the category of Latinx author. Premise is that it's fantasy based on kind of Caribbean islander cultures, and the main characters are a mother and her son, which sounds awesome. You hardly ever get to see fantasy protagonists, or at least it seems like that's becoming more common. But so I am very curious to see how that plays out. So I am definitely looking forward to that one, and I haven't heard much about it, to be honest. I've seen some good reviews for it, but I haven't heard a lot of buzz for it, so I'm very curious. Then the two they're definitely in the maybe category, but I would love to get to them. And that is, both of them are NetGalley arcs. Both of them are fantasies. The first one is Engines of Empire by R.S. Ford. If you're curious about the synopsis on this, I'll just refer you to Alan's review of this, since he got an e-arc of it and really enjoyed it. He made it sound fascinating to me, including, I think, dragons and kind of political machinations, all of that. I mean, I'm sold on kind of dragons and mechs. You don't really have to do much else to sell me besides that, but he made it sound amazing, so I'm gonna pick that one up. Hopefully. Then I also have Hunt the Stars by Jesse Mihalik. I don't know much about this. The main reason I was interested is Jesse Mihalik has a different series that I forget the name of, that sounded really fun, kind of more, her stuff seems to be more in the realm of fantasy with romance and kind of scoundrelly types. So I'm definitely curious to check this one out. I know the Hunt the Stars is two enemies basically having to team up and work together and not knowing whether or not they can trust each other. So it sounded interesting to me, and I really want to check out some of her stuff, because it sounds like it could be like the dose of fantasy and romance that I think would be really fun. So definitely checking that one out as soon as I get a chance. Engines of Empire is going to be the higher priority as far as the e-arcs because that one releases on January 18th, and I really want to try and get reviews out near the publication date. Then Hunt the Stars comes out in my birthday month. In fact, on my birthday, February 1st. So I am definitely looking forward to checking that one out. Maybe as a birthday present to myself. But we'll see if I can fit it into January. The other one that I may try and fit in, since Alan, God, he's to blame for so much of my TBR, but Alan posted a review of Justice of Kings, which I also somehow got an e-arc for. I did not think that was going to happen. That one doesn't come out till February 22nd, so I may shift it into February's reading. But if there's any way I can squeeze it in, I really want to because it sounds so good. But again, I'll post his review for that so that you can check that out. I'm not even going to try and do a synopsis for that. I just don't know enough. I know that it sounds amazing to me because it gets into justice and you have it. It sounds like an interesting thing where you have this magistrate type character who travels around. I'm just going to do synopsis anyway, I guess. But magistrate character who travels around accompanied by his assistant, who's a teenage girl, and she is basically narrating the whole thing basically from a diary, and it's supposed to kind of get into Vine style talk about how justice works, like how corruption can interfere with that. And so it just sounds like exactly my kind of book, so I'm definitely looking forward to getting to that one. And I've really only heard rave reviews for it, so fingers crossed. That's it for me for my 2022 goals, plus my January TBR. I have not been very good in the last couple weeks about posting, but I am going to try and fit that in as I can. Like I said, I am back in school, so my free time is a lot more limited in January, but I love being able to talk about books with you guys, so I am really hoping that I can make some time for it. So I will see you guys in the next one.